If they don't have too much on their plates, the Kings of Combat Sports Podcast, John and Wade. They'll talk about the things they did that day. They'll analyze the work of Vince and Triple H. Rewind to SmackDown. 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 Rewind to SmackDown.
Yes, it is Rewind to SmackDown, as we are color coordinated for the Blue Show. I am John Pollock alongside the Toronto Blue Jays' own Wai Ting. Hello, Wai.
That's right. Yes. In memory of the Toronto Blue Jays 2023 season.
What a season it was.
Of which I've seen 0 games.
Well, that was their season in a nutshell. They played 162 games to lose 2, and they're out of the season. That's how it works.
At least they got the extra 2, right?
I don't count these wildcard series as making the playoffs. I know it technically is the playoffs now, but it's such a nothing series in the grand scheme of things. I think you have to win the wildcard series to be really in the real playoffs, which I consider going down now.
It's almost like a qualifier.
It is. It's like a playoff game. Or it's like when they would be they'd have to play one final game at the end of the season to determine a tie.
Title eliminator, as wrestling would call them.
Yeah. So anyway, the Blue Jays are all blowing up. There's a front office strife.
There is? Okay.
Just regular stuff going on.
Right.
What are you up to? What's the word?
Man, I just finished the Beckham documentary or the Beckham series on Netflix. I highly recommend it. It's very fascinating. Yes. What other Beckhams are there that you know of?
I don't know any other Beckhams.
Yes. So yes, the soccer player or the football player.
Football.
Yeah, as most of the world would.
Is it just the one documentary? Is it a series?
It's like a 4-part, like hour-long episodes, like very much in the style of The Last Dance. But I mean, totally, like different style production. But I would say I think Netflix is trying to capture maybe a similar, type of buzz with like another very, I guess, beloved or maybe much talked about, celebrated sports figure.
Is he involved with producing it?
That I don't know. I actually don't know much about it.
I feel all of these major sports documentaries, the people are involved themselves, but I could be wrong. I have no idea. I haven't seen anything about this.
I mean, I guess, with a certain level, like with that, the amount of involvement that they have and the amount of access that they have to him, I have to imagine there's some sort of agreement, but I don't know the extent of it. You know who actually is part of the people that put it together? What's the dude that played Hugo on Succession?
I don't know his name, but okay, he was involved in it.
Fisher Stevens, yeah. I didn't know this, but he's actually a very accomplished documentarian. He's actually won an Academy Award for documentary filmmaking. So he does the interviews. I really should have done more research before talking about this, but you can hear him ask the questions throughout. I have to assume he did a whole lot for might have even directed it, I would assume as well. So anyway,
so you recommend
he's the filmmaker. Highly recommended. He's the director, yes.
How fast did you watch it in the 4 parts?
Oh, I think I spread it over like 2 or 3 nights.
2 or 3 nights. Wow. Yeah. I'm trying to catch up on Survivor. It's been a mess.
Really? Why? What's the difference between this year?
Well, it's not so much the show itself. It's my cable box is messing up on us. We've had it for a number of years now. So it didn't record the first week. So we had to watch it on the app, on the website for the television station. Mm-hmm. So they've built in every 15 minutes, there's a block of 4 ads. Okay, you got to sit through 4 30-second ads. Mm-hmm. Now, do they mix up the ads? No, it's the same commercial 4 times that I've got to sit through. That only guarantees I will never be a client of this product. Mm-hmm. And I hate it. I test it so much. It's I feel so like I've been kidnapped to sit through this commercial.
Well, it means they haven't sold whatever inventory that they have, for these ads. And so they typically just, run the same ad several times, or oftentimes it'd be like City TV presents holiday movies, and you see the same damn thing, every
Well, this is the same 30-second commercial for an insurance company.
Yeah.
4 times in a row, like 5 times during the hour. And then the bastards, it's they do the big reveal at the end, and then you've got 60 seconds of the show left for scenes from the next Survivor where the person voted out gives their speech.
And they put a break there.
They shoehorn 2 minutes of ads for the final 60 seconds. I'm like, you assholes.
Ooh,
Like,
brutal.
I just, it leaves me with such a negative viewer feeling at the end. Like, I would do anything to not support this network, this industry.
So believe it or not, this is like something I think about often and something I actually deal with like on a daily basis.
You know what? You can compare it to us. Everyone can fast forward through the ads. I appreciate those that do listen, and God forbid people that might even support some of the people that help bring the show to you. But it's not as though we've locked it, so you have to listen to the ad.
Well, on YouTube,
Role is in the listener.
Well, but on YouTube, you do have to. On YouTube. Like on YouTube, unless you have a YouTube Premium, you can't. Which I do actually, but like unless
YouTube
you subscribe.
Premium.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I got it.
I don't mind it as much.
I got it through a VPN.
People to say, 12 seconds. 12 seconds of a YouTube.
It depends. It varies.
Is it 2 minutes that you have to sit through?
No,
never 2 minutes.
So. No, yeah, I don't think it's
never 2 minutes. Way it is about 12 seconds. And okay, I don't know. I don't mind YouTube ads actually as much. I'm more just used to it, and it's a minimal ask.
I guess my point is, I think about it often because I have to determine where to place the ads often, like after every show. And it's a real fine balance you have to make. Okay. Like, and this is something we did back in television. It was one of my first things, that I had to do as an intern is to put commercial breaks into Ring of Honor DVDs, basically, because we had to broadcast them. Right. So you have to determine, and you have to use some sense to think about how can you get somebody in long enough that they're settled before you introduce your first commercial break. And this is also part of the strategy of making the first 30 minutes commercial free, like you saw on Tuesday. You want people to settle in. Once they're settled in, then you maybe show them a commercial. So they would often tell us leave, the first chunk long so that, people can just stay there, watch it, and then throw in maybe a commercial break. And then once people are settled in, then you can just let them up because then they're not going anywhere anyway. No, but
you've captured them.
There's a different strategy, but it's something I think about often. I don't even know if there's necessarily a right answer for it.
Did you ever play the same commercial 4 times in a row?
Well, that I'm not in charge of. That depended if we had sold the ad space. If we hadn't sold the ad space, some of those Giants ads, I'm willing to bet we played them several times. Yeah.
Yeah, Matt Hughes with his country breakfast. Remember that Giants ad?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's the latest on ads. So to spare everyone, no ads on this show tonight.
Not on this one. That's why you're here.
Not on this one.
Not on Mondays or Wednesdays too. At least on the audio version for those of you who are subscribed.
That's right. This is the no ad club.
Yes, it is
on the cafe. So thank you to all joining us tonight. We will mention that this weekend we have Royal Quest 3 that is coming up on Saturday. That is going to feature Karen Peterson and Bruce Lord with pretty much their weekly New Japan show review. And then also Collision Course with John Cena and Kate from Montreal. Coming back Sunday, Rich Fan and WH Park will review episode number 3. Is it 2 or 3? 2 of Loki. And as well, capping off your weekend, the NWA podcast is back with Chris, Nate, and Andrew, as everyone can look forward to that Sunday evening, 8 Eastern, for everybody here at Post Wrestling.
And those guys have a lot to talk about this month. And as always, maybe a bit of discussion about the Muffin Man himself. So at the youtube.com/Post Wrestling, 8 p.m.
Subscribe to the YouTube channel and never miss a show, as we are going to be getting into all things SmackDown related, but just a few news items, because it has been all the way since Tuesday that we last talked. I barely remembered you when I logged in today, what you look like.
This is weird. Yeah, I know.
Well, what have you thought of the fallout from the Tuesday night battle, the ratings results, and the very level-headed reactions from various sides? You've weighed in on some of this. Let me tell you, everybody, one thing. If ever I was going to go at Way, I'm never, ever doing it on Twitter. Okay. He is an artist when it comes to carving out, or I should say chopping down some person coming at him. I would never fight you in that arena. It's just, it just could not be done. Way. You are really good on Twitter.
I don't even know what that means, to be really good on Twitter. I mean, I don't tweet that often, like unless it's for promotion. But sometimes I feel inspired to say something, and I guess this was one of those cases. Because again, I'm somebody who thinks a lot about like how people come across to the public. I mean, I have to think about that for our business, and I have to think about it as we criticize a professional wrestling company. And I thought the way he's been handling himself on social media this week, honestly, has been
well, let's recap. He
Sure.
being Tony Khan. And so
Yeah.
the ratings came out on Wednesday. And if you want a detailed analysis, myself and Brandon did go live on Wednesday. So we'll kind of the actual ratings analysis, you can go there. But in essence, it was a big win for NXT, especially in total viewers. In 18 to 49, it was narrower. It was a 0.30 to a 0.26 that I do not look at as a failure for AEW. The fact that they did a 0.26 on the unfamiliar night, and the fact that you had a combination of these two audience on a Tuesday night against a Major League Baseball playoff game, the start of the NHL season. I looked at these numbers as nothing to be too downtrodden over if you are the AEW side. And I think for NXT, I mean, it showed you what an enormously promoted show, what you can generate. And they did a massive number. This was their most watched NXT since September of 2019. To put that into perspective. And they're in way less cable homes today than they were 4 years ago. So a very impressive number, which, I mean, I wasn't going to point that out that, if you do take into account the cable homes, that would probably, if you adjust to 2019 levels, that would technically put NXT over 1 million, wouldn't it?
I guess there's inflation when it comes to these sort of TV ratings too, isn't there?
Well, we won't get into that, but I guess what do we call this? The X in question?
I don't know. And I don't know if there's a consensus about it.
The post? No, that's our word.
I guess so.
Elon doesn't get that too. Well, anyway, Tony Khan, this week he was very he had his phone very close to him. He was on X for a good amount of the week. And one of his tweets was
his birthday.
It was his birthday on Tuesday, best birthday of his life. And he noted that 2 legendary streaks came to an end this week, and that was The Undertaker and John Cena appearing on a show that did not do 1 million viewers or 400,000 in the demo, which to his knowledge is the first time that has ever happened to The Undertaker and John Cena, with the 4 best words for any person launching a subtle attack, with all due respect. And I don't know. I took this at first as sort of him just being in jest here, but he was certainly, I mean, roundly criticized. I think not.
Can you explain the jest part of it?
I mean, it's such a common, it's such a common reaction that I see personally of everyone that is so fixated on AEW hitting. Well, it wasn't 1 million viewers when they hit like a 950 or so. It's always the 1 million viewers is some like this grand achievement. So I almost took it as him making his own Tony Khan type of joke in that way. But regardless, I thought that this was just, I mean, not a great reaction to things. And he totally opened himself for all the criticism that came his way. I also think this guy is very much of the idea of tweet something absolutely insane that's going to get people's attention, and then boom, within less than an hour, we're making a match announcement. And this is his idea of promotion. And you can argue whether that's an effective form of promotion or not. But a lot of the discussion this week was not about next week's Dynamite or this weekend's Collision, where you have a huge match with Danielson and Christian. The discussion is mainly about Tony Khan's tweets. And I don't think anyone's tuning into a show because of the head of your company and what he's tweeting.
Yeah, just to maybe like backtrack just a little bit, like even let's just say that's his strategy. Say something controversial, get it blown up, maybe get it ratioed, and then tweet about a match and promote the match. I never think it's ever a good idea to mortgage your public favor for attention. That sounds so stupid to me. I for his benefit, I hope that that's not his strategy. Because if it is, I think it's just like one of several instances of this company really needing to question, how he views promotion specifically social media promotion, because I think the man is a very good booker. He's a terrific professional wrestling booker. But when it comes to like this past week in particular, I think even prior to this, like there have been instances. Yes, we remember like the Big Swole thing, but like for the most part, he just kind of like he's fine. But for whatever reason, this NXT battle on Tuesday has really kind of like it set him off like in a different way in the lead up to it, and it's not just an X like this. It's what was it like? Posting the Curb Your Enthusiasm gifs. Like a whole lot of other things that I ultimately like. Again, it's fun. It's definitely fun to follow. It's fun to talk about, but I think it's very unbecoming of somebody who should be the leader of a promotion, the boss, the captain of the entire ship. Like this is the type of shit posting that you should leave to, I don't know, I'm trying to think, Griff Garrison, or like, I don't know, it's just somebody else that's affiliated with you but could take the bullets. You should not be taking those shots as the captain. And if you are going to, you better make sure that you know how to do it properly. And this guy does not. He thinks he's being clever, like that. The jest that you were trying to explain, John. How many people would understand that? What fraction of the audience is he speaking to that would understand, the whole million conversation, that would understand the joke, and especially in as poor of a way that as he worded it here.
Well, I'll say this about Tony Khan. I don't think that there's. I understand the need that you want to give off this presentation that you are the head of this big company and that you're very professional. I can also look at it from the sense of when we talk about with MMA, and I think Scott Coker is like a tremendous promoter. I think he is the kind of guy you are never going to worry about him saying something that's going to embarrass you. If you're Viacom, if you're Bellator, he's very professional. He is very fair. He has got fighters that all speak very glowingly of the guy. He is also someone that is never going to excite you with an interview that he's going to do, and that is part of the job of a promoter, is to garner attention. And you can ask 100 different people, what is the best form of attracting attention? And it's all philosophy, and everyone's going to have different answers. And one answer, like you and I could do the exact same thing, and people might be way more receptive to the way Wai presents something than me. Odds are he would be. And like that comes down to the personality. Tony Khan is not the best public figure. And I think people can very much see that in his interviews. And the fact that we see all these different variations of him, like here we get the person that is, this member of the Jacksonville Jaguars ownership who is very by the book on these media calls. He's very guarded about information. And then we see this dude who just goes to town online, and it's as though we're seeing a different personality. And I think people just get confused of like where, it's like he has different voices for different mediums. And I think that sometimes it's also the fact is with AEW being cooler now, I think that it heightens
cooler in a negative
criticism.
way.
It's not like he was not doing this stuff prior. Like when he was bringing up stuff on Twitter, when he was winning, it was, presented as like, this is a quirky aspect of Tony Khan. And now that they are cooler, it's looking as a guy that's kind of losing it. And I think it's neither extreme.
I mean, I'm trying to think back like to when they were winning and thinking of examples like we might have seen over the past week, like and I my memory is not the best, as people know.
I mean, if you go back to when they did that head-to-head battle back in 2021, the Friday night, I mean, he was garnering this kind of attention. Even remember that time, and by this point, the head-to-head battle may have been over, but just the way he went on about like the bots that are all coming after them and stuff. And for all we know, like we don't know how true or untrue that was. They never revealed like this study or whatever they did that went into it. But take that same argument today, and he's arguing about Twitter bots, even if it's legit. How does that come across today versus 2 years ago?
Sure.
There's a different perception when you are perceived as the number 2 company instead of the hot rising alternative, that they have somewhat lost that image.
Right. Now it feels like he's complaining about losing what we all perceive to be, okay, so I'm not going to say a fair fight because they had The Undertaker and John Cena on their show, but we all knew the terms going into battle, right? Okay, you were going to throw your best thing. NXT was going to throw their best thing. Tony Khan was going to ask for what is it, an overrun. They're going to give him 4 extra minutes. He's going to do Minoru Suzuki versus Eddie Kingston. Everybody was throwing everything they had into the show. So from that sense, we knew what the terms of battle were, and from that sense, it was fair. Now the Cena Taker tweet afterwards, just or not, it came across to many people like it was complaining about unfair rules after the fact, after you had already agreed to the terms. And this might be, to what you're saying. It just makes them look bad after losing a battle and complaining about why you lost. I think he should have just taken it. And more importantly than that, beyond all of this, I feel like he's tweeting emotionally. And again, as the head of a major company, when you have so many people that are relying on your public image for their livelihood, you should not be using social media like that. It's very irresponsible.
Yeah, it's, I can certainly see when you have people like Kenny Omega and Adam Copeland who are out there talking about how, we're all happy for each other. We don't have this anger against the other side like you fans do. It's like, okay, you can lecture your audience about how they act online, but at the same time, it's like from the top down, and this is on both sides. Both sides, you see this competitive battle where that very much is the case, that they are in this fight and they are not just happy to be participants in this game. Like they are playing for keeps. This Tuesday was, evidence of that from both sides. And I don't even discourage that. I think sometimes people are a little too sensitive to the fact that, yeah, you are going to have warring fan bases here. It can get out of control, but there's also a excitement to it that
it helped the industry.
That it's, it's my team against yours. And yeah, it's not always going to generate the most enlightening takes from people online, but that is what we are creating here and trying to recreate a period that is so romanticized to this audience of the late 90s that if only we could go back to that. Well, here's as close as you're going to get to it. And this is what comes with it. It's like, yeah, fans are going to be very competitive, as are your people involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, again, you head into a very tense matchup. Okay. David Beckham versus, I'm trying to pull out a football reference, soccer
Zinedine
reference.
Zidane.
They actually teamed up together. They were on the same team for
were they?
Period.
Okay.
Yeah. They probably opposed each other at some point too. Anyway, you head into a big, high stakes, World Cup qualifying match. All right. Things are tense, things are heated, but after the match, you line up, you exchange your jerseys, you shake your hands and say, "Hey, good game. Let's I'm going to get you next time." That sort of sentiment. And it's just, I mean, it's probably just because we're in such a, I don't know, contentious world where it has to be this or it has to be other. But I really wish it was more like these companies could just shake their hands and be like, "Good game. Let's duke it out again." What, in November when this has to happen again?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're not getting that way. We're not,
but I think remember
frankly,
Hunter's response was, what is it? It's not a marathon, not a race. And he congratulate or AEW on that first weekend. That's
I mean, I recall the comment about the Pissant Company and to Ariel Helwani. Yeah. So what, you beat our developmental group, big deal.
Fine.
I mean,
okay.
it goes both ways. They've been dismissive of each other. You know what? And and there's a lot of the fan base, like they want to see this kind of thing as well. But sure. I do feel as a whole this week, like I wasn't so much as like if it was like one tweet here or there, but I just think overall, I hope personally that Tony Khan is taking this in stride, because I think we've seen a history of promoters that they're on top and then they see business go down and they start to just lose sight of what this is. And I hope he is not at that stage. It's always been a concern of this guy, not so much just like losing control, but a burnout factor. And here he is producing all of this television, and it's one thing when you're working all of those hours and you're yielding the results that you desire. It's quite another when you're putting in the exact same, if not more hours, and you're getting less results for the same amount of work. That can be very difficult to rationalize. And something like Tuesday, I'm sure he would have taken great pride if they could have won that. And I think if he has level-headed people around him, I think you look objectively at a 0.26 on your Tuesday night, what you were up against. And I think you take solace with that yes, we did not beat them, but we were not blown out either. And not to be coming back next week with a reactionary booked show, and more so looking. And that's one thing I will say about both shows on Tuesday, and then we can move on, is that Dynamite had its show that was building to the future, and I wouldn't say they just hot-shotted anything just for Tuesday. And even for NXT, you can argue all the names were certainly a hot-shotting tactic, but they were all linked to younger talents. They were building up Halloween Havoc. Like, no one was there to just be, even Braun Breaker. Like, yes, he was in the spot to just take the choke slam, but I really don't feel this was like a terrible moment for Braun Breaker. It was closer to what we saw with the Raw anniversary show at the beginning of this year, where it was very different, where you had the talent from the past come back, but it was the current talent that was still featured in a prominent spot. So I thought both shows, it was not a case of just booking for the night, but rather booking for weeks from now as well on top of it.
I think it was both, John. Like, I definitely think they were booking for the night, but while they had The Undertaker there, they're going to have him walk out with Carmelo Hayes at the end, you know? Like, they were definitely booking to beat AEW. That was their
yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it was not done in just such a way
in a vacuum.
The NXT talent came off as so secondary to the stars that were there that night. And next week we're watching like the replacement team instead of the real stars. And there will be some of that. I'm not going to say, like, next week for NXT, are they going to retain this huge audience that they had?
Mm-hmm.
Are they coming back next Tuesday? We don't know.
We'll find out.
Okay. Well, there are some of the thoughts there. Let's chat about a few more things here. Davey Boy Smith Jr., he is actually in hospital. He had to go through an emergency surgery on Wednesday when he had appendicitis and had part of his colon removed. It turned out he had diverticulitis as well. He called this one of the most painful experiences of his life. And this is why he's off of the MLW Slaughterhouse card on Saturday night. You imagine this guy in this emergency room is like, I got to get out for Slaughterhouse. Sir, what is Slaughterhouse? You are not going anywhere. So Tom Lawler is replacing him. And Harry Smith stated, on the pain scale, on a scale of 1 to 10, this was a 12. So best wishes to Harry Smith here. Like, this is that's no joke. And having part of his colon removed and dealing with diverticulitis. So he could be on the shelf for some time.
It's something I would never, ever want to experience for myself, nor anybody that I even know, between this and what I've heard from others like Brock Lesnar who have suffered from it. I mean, when we're talking about tough men who have been through a lot in their own physical training as athletes, talking about
Vince had diverticulitis.
Talking about this being the worst pain that they've ever felt, I can only imagine.
Earlier this week, Ari Emanuel spoke at this Bloomberg conference, and he spoke about the rights increase for SmackDown and also about the TKO stock. And he noted the fact that it was several factors that he believes have contributed to this. And he mentioned the fact that there's plenty of interest in Raw right now and thinks it's among like the big rights that are out there. But he said that there's 3 things that happened that have affected the stock. He said that they thought that he feels the investment community thinks that Raw was the best package. And even though he feels the 40% increase was in line with expectations. Number 2, he cited the PFL situation, which was the Saudi Arabian group that has invested in the PFL, which scared Wall Street that Saudi Arabia was just going to pump in all this money into the PFL. And this week, UFC announcing their own deal with Saudi Arabia that surprised some. And number 3, the number 3 reason our stock could be down, Vince McMahon. He said that he's 78 years old. He's been working at this for decades, and he wanted to be able to put at any point his stock, which I don't quite understand. I didn't hear the interview, so I didn't hear it in context there. But looking at those reasons for affecting the stock, which was down almost 3% again today. So this TKO stock, it's not rebounding, and maybe once the Raw deal comes out, there will be more expectation once they have a sense of what that deal is going to bring them. But I mean, Brandon Thurston, he's very high on the idea of Raw rights not coming around until this NBA deal is sorted, because that's going to handcuff so many of these networks in terms of their like what money they're earmarking for the NBA, which is going to take great precedence over Raw and what they have left and where these networks are going to be, ones that are left out in the cold without NBA. Well, they have a lot of budget left, and maybe Raw can benefit from that.
Yeah. First, shout out to Andrew Thompson, who was responsible for, I think, spreading this to a lot of wrestling spheres. I saw a lot of people using his transcription. So Andrew Thompson is, again, the GOAT when it comes to finding.
In the middle of the night tracking this down as well.
Yeah. So shout out Andrew for this. I saw a lot of people obviously focus on the Vince portion of this quote. And I don't, because even you, John, might have trouble maybe interpreting something like this. I definitely feel like a lot of people might have also misinterpreted. I mean, a lot of the headlines we ended up seeing coming out of this was Vince McMahon, Ari Emanuel blames Vince McMahon for, a TKO stock going down, something to that effect. I've tried to understand maybe like what he's meaning here, and I don't know if we should necessarily look at it as like him being derogatory or at least like insulting Vince. Like, how did you sense it? Because the way
I really want to hear it, because like, again, reading this, it's like it's kind of like a jumbled sentence here that I wouldn't be able to like leap to a conclusion on like what he meant by this. I mean, it's clear like something in Vince's deal regarding his stock he sees as a liability to the stock, but I don't think at the same time Ari Emanuel would be so brazen as to just put his number 2 under the bus in a situation like this in a very public setting. So I'm with you.
So this, along with reports that are out there that like I saw people write like what Triple H has been knighted, like, or at least like whatever that means, like put in charge of creative, are letting a lot of people basically infer that like Vince is being ousted from the company and all
which is not the case. I mean,
yeah,
I did ask one person like in the company this week just about like the Vince like creative situation, and was just told that this is from one person that he's backed off creative entirely around 3 weeks ago or so, and added, "We'll see if it lasts," which seems to be the sentiment of it seems like the hands are off the wheel when it comes to creative, and that Paul Levesque is steering things. But again, that like Vince McMahon is the number 2 person in TKO. And if he has such a desire to insert himself, well, he is going to outrank everybody on the WWE side of things. And
right. Yeah.
So that would be
at least one other interpretation I've seen of this is that he could be saying that because Vince is getting older and because he has the ability to basically leave the company at any point, he could be saying that is what might be negatively affecting the stock. The fact that he could be gone. And stockholders, traditionally, at least we've known, have really relied on the stability of having a Vince McMahon around in order to have confidence in the company. So in that sense, it might actually be, I don't know, a compliment to Vince. Again, I have not heard the quote either. So we will, and I'm sure the fine folks at WrestleNomics Radio will this weekend be talking about this as well.
He was also asked about his changing opinion on working with Saudi Arabia. And he said that I didn't want them, referring to Saudi Arabia at the time. We weren't public in our investors stack, okay? I said it on many podcasts about my feelings about the situation. I didn't say we would never be doing business in Saudi. I just didn't want them in the financial stack of our investors. We distribute their Now Soccer League through IMG. Because of WWE, we're in business with them for at least 5 years. 2 events a year. Great. They just bought an event from us for the UFC. Great price. We're doing the event. It'll be an unbelievable card. So I just, at the time, didn't feel comfortable for many reasons, which has been stated. But we're in business with them now. So that's simple. It's that simple.
Yeah, it's that simple. Sure.
We turned back $400 million. Now we're in business with them. It's just that simple.
I can't begin to comprehend like what somebody in the position of an Ari Emanuel like has to, I guess, navigate with I think his position. I believe for him, it was probably, despite maybe the amount of money that he was giving away, from a PR perspective, probably beneficial to him to deny that money at that time. But now, I mean, it's relatively not, I guess, a hot button issue. I think the audience, for kind of sadly has just kind of accepted that like major companies are going to be working with Saudi Arabia as part of our entertainment. And beyond that, he purchased the WWE, who can't get out of this deal. So once those shackles are off. Well, what else are you really protecting about your public image? So, I mean, it's business, like it's sad to say.
It feels like a defeatist attitude to look at, but I mean, there's like this level of running a business and a publicly traded one. It really leaves no avenue for ethical decisions that are going to trump profitability, and that Ari Emanuel would be doing a disservice to his company if millions of dollars are being offered from Saudi Arabia, and the only thing that is holding you from profiting off of that is a moral judgment. And you can look at it any way you want. I still look at the fact that in all of that, there was a lot of people that were very much aghast at what happened to Jamal Khashoggi. He did something at that time that I think very, very few people in that position would do. So that doesn't disqualify that for me. I'm not by any means saying Ari Emanuel is a saint by any stretch, but the fact is he did something and has talked about the fact like he feared for his life after that. So it's not as though he just did something that had, just business ramifications. It had personal ones too for him. And if you're in this situation, if you're going to be making those moral judgments, you're not going to be someone that's going to be wanted in these positions. That like, this is just where things go. And it's sometimes I wish there would be sometimes more of a value attached to moral efficacy, but that's not the reality we live in. And that's kind of like just burying your head in the sand.
Especially, again, sad to say, especially for the audience that consumes the products that he's in charge of.
Yeah, like Wai, if you saw the reactions this week and compare it to other than some media people, like it was like a nothing case of like the UFC going to Saudi Arabia. Like there was not some kind of like moral panic about going to Saudi Arabia or what it signals. It is much more embedded, I feel, by this point, and it truly is in wrestling as well. I think like there are more in pro wrestling, but that's also us being in a bit of a bubble too.
I mean, soccer, World Cup, in Qatar.
Like this is only getting more aggressive, and like this is where everything is going towards. So it's more and more of your sports, your entertainment, that you are sometimes not going to be comfortable where that money is coming from. But that is, a major force if you are consuming combat sports, if you're consuming F1, if you're consuming soccer,
Beyonce or whoever, like whatever
anywhere,
concert has taken that money to perform. Sure. Yes.
Last things here, on the MMA front, if you want to hear more about the whole USADA story with UFC, I've written a few stories on the site as well in today's audio news update that's up for Double and Espresso patrons, a bit of a commentary there, as well as in the written update today. If you have the time, Wai, the press conference from Thursday with Jeff Nowitzki and Hunter Campbell is something else to watch. These two are Jeff Nowitzki a few times speaks to the media, Hunter Campbell virtually never. And I mean, they just excoriated USADA. And I mean, you always have to take some, like, I think a little skepticism towards the UFC side of things is always healthy to have. This is one side versus the other, and they're both kind of painting their picture. But in essence, I mean, they harshly pushed back at the notion that Conor McGregor was going to skirt through the system and be bypassed the 6-month testing period. And the fact is, they stated they told USADA that. Now, the conflict in that is that you had Dana White out trumpeting the fact, Conor's going to fight in December. And when asked about USADA, who cares what USADA says? I mean, that's what Dana White was stating on top of things. So you almost got the sense from these two. It's like, well, what Dana says is, it's like the WWE attendance figures. They're for entertainment purposes only. It's they knew the real story about Conor, but they're revamping their whole drug testing system, and that will go into effect January 1st. They're moving over to Drug Free Sport International, and they've obviously been planning this for a long time. For a year, they've been planning this. It was Monday when they contacted USADA to let them know that their contract is not going to be renewed. And for 24 hours, you had fighters going nuts thinking it's back to the Wild West days. And they were, it was a mess this week, but
so Drug Free Sport International, just do you have a bit of background on maybe some of what they've done in the past?
So I just know that like they are involved in many of the major sports leagues. Like they handle a lot of the drug testing involved with the NFL, with Major League Baseball, MLS, LPG, like tons and tons of places as well. I am not as well versed on them as I am USADA or even VADA. But they are, very reputable in the sense of like the leagues that they work with. And this is a third party that is going to be administering the drug testing. But ultimately, like we saw with USADA, like they were a third party group, but they were also being paid millions and millions by the UFC. And like I saw firsthand like issues where like I would reach out about like stuff with like Brock Lesnar in the testing pool, and they'd be very like, well, we're not going to disclose stuff. Like they were not as transparent, I think, as you would hope for from a third party entity, like where it came to like who's in the testing pool, who's not in the testing pool. Like Conor McGregor retired last year and no one knew about it until it was noticed that like he hasn't been tested in months. And then it's like, oh yeah, he retired. The biggest star in the sport retired, and he has gone off and done who knows what. Like you can't necessarily pinpoint, and that's another argument. Like if someone suffers a debilitating injury, should they be able to have some kind of leeway if they have to use certain drugs that go against the drug testing policy in order, like they were very concerned, Conor McGregor, like the ligaments in his leg may not properly heal without certain rehabilitation. And at that point, like that's kind of the philosophical debate that you're going to have. USADA was much more hardline about this. And it seems like this new wave is going to be more, they're going to be more open to differences, and that's good and bad. Like you can, it's very easy to bend things when it benefits your company as well. So we're going to see how this plays out when under this, like you have certainly a lot.
How much is your average MMA fan? Do you think your average MMA fan cares about any of this?
About drug testing in sports? I think it's a very small amount. I think they'll get upset when they see someone has tested positive, but honestly, I think it's a very small percentage that care if these guys are using or not.
Right. But UFC is going ahead and seems like they're
I don't think they feel they can put the genie back in the bottle and go. I just think it would be such a bad look for them to go back and it's just to the commission testing. And you would see bodies changing and such. I just feel, and they have clearly been planning this for a long time. They've put a lot of resources into this over the years that I didn't see them just taking away drug testing. And then the final things here for this weekend, we've got Royal Quest 3. That will be headlined by Will Ospreay and Zack Sabre Jr., along with Shingo Takagi and Tomohiro Ishii. And then Collision on Saturday night has Christian Cage against Bryan Danielson for the TNT title and Samoa Joe versus Willie Mack. And back to its normal time slot of 8 p.m. Eastern time. So after hitting us over the head that it would be 7 o'clock on Tuesday night, something involving like the outcome of one of the MLB series puts them back at 8 p.m. And I'm sure they were hitting it tonight on Rampage, but that was, I don't care what what they publicly state. I would be furious at my broadcaster if I'm like at a time when these numbers are very important that we're doing. And you're telling me on our Tuesday night that we're hitting everyone about.
Oh, either we've lost John or I have broken off the stream. Let me know, everybody in the chat room. Sorry, this has not happened at least, since Tuesday. So, John, if you can hear me, please try to reconnect. If I'm the one that's off, well, maybe I'll try to reconnect. Apologies, everybody. Okay, there we go. Okay, I think John is the one that's off. Okay. He's frozen. Okay. All right. Sorry, everybody. Technical difficulties. We've had bots trying to infiltrate us this week. I want to maybe take the time to just say what's up. Let's do a bit of an impromptu chat. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for watching on a Friday night. All 32 of you watching live. I'm going to be editing this out of the audio, so we can talk shit about everybody we want. That's listening to this. Only the 32 of us will be. Oh, okay. He's back. Oops. Sorry. There you go.
Okay. I think I'm back.
Oh, we're just about to talk shit about not you, John, but all the audio listeners.
Okay. On that note,
let's just pick up. Where did we end off?
Oh, we were done. We were ready to go into SmackDown.
Oh, okay.
Collisions at 8 p.m. That's the news. The Tulsa, Oklahoma site was bringing us the season premiere of SmackDown. And out to kick off the season premiere was John Cena, who was immediately interrupted by Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, and Paul Heyman. And he says that Cena only showed up because I left, and you have the audacity to call yourself the greatest of all time. Reigns says he is the GOAT, and to have Cena leave or else I'll make you. And Cena says, I'm not even here to challenge you. I'm here to acknowledge you, and says 1,138 days as champion. That's the greatest accomplishment of all time. And I'm like, how is that the greatest accomplishment of all time when there are multiple people that have held the title longer?
Okay. To just argue the point. It might be perceived as a much more difficult task to achieve these days than it was, back when Bruno was champion.
I think Bruno might have more matches this year than Roman.
That is true. But the competition for, who should, like, when business is this strong, you have so many arguments for putting the belt on somebody, just even for a one-night pop. Went through it with Sammy, went through it with Cody, went through it with so many people. Could it not be argued that it's more impressive that Roman has been champion for this long?
I mean, with Bruno, he had to come back to the Garden every single month with a new opponent. Every month. Reigns doesn't have to go back to the same venue once a month.
Who drew the more money? What's the dollar amount that you can attach to either reign?
Well, I mean, you got to...
Maybe that's what Cena means, is all I'm saying. Okay.
Well, it's the greatest accomplishment of all time for him. He didn't even specify just in pro wrestling. Like, the greatest accomplishment of any, like, miracle that has happened in our lifetime. Like, science be damned. Roman Reigns has held this title for 3 years. He says, I'm not here to challenge because I have not earned it. I'm not high enough on the rankings. But someone who has is LA Knight. Out comes LA Knight in his Timbs. And he is handed the microphone. And Cena tells him, it's your time. It's like, man, that's what Trick Williams wanted to know. When did you know it was your time? So maybe he told Trick Williams, it's not your time. It's LA Knight's time.
Watch Friday.
So Knight cuts a big promo on Reigns, and Reigns responds, who the hell do you think you are? And Knight goes to respond when Jimmy Uso shows up and attacks, but then Knight reverses, sends Jimmy out of the ring, and it's Solo who backs Cena into the corner, and then Reigns retreats, the bloodline takes off, and then Reigns sends Sikoa to handle him, and by handling him, Solo challenged him to a gentleman's match later in about an hour and a half's time, and they will meet in the main event. So I think it was very clear from this show that we are getting Reigns against LA Knight and probably Cena against Solo Sikoa at Crown Jewel, as things had been going in that direction.
You would think so. Although, like, I mean, is Cena's status, like, is he guaranteed? What's he guaranteed for up until this point?
Dude, the SAG ACTRA thing, like, they are, like, their talks are not going great. So I don't think the strike is ending imminently.
But he's confirmed for Crown Jewel?
He was expected for Crown Jewel, yes.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I guess you would expect that match. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a very good segment, though. You had your kind of dream pairing, or at least, like, not seen for a long time pairing between John Cena and Roman Reigns, your two biggest stars in the segment, in the very first segment. You definitely do, like, maybe think about, okay, are they teasing a match between these two? At this point, again, not knowing maybe what his full commitments are, I don't know if that's a direction that they could go. But it leaves the door open, at least, when you do a little kind of moment between the two like this. More importantly, like, it set the stage for LA Knight to come up here in between the two biggest stars that you had to have in the company. And I thought he was so charismatic and strong in this segment that he felt like he belonged on this stage. And he felt to me like the main character coming out of this. So I think Cena overall has done a really good job of, like, serving his spotlight to LA Knight as part of this run.
I would argue, like, Cena has been almost too secondary, I think, in this run. Like, he has deferred greatly to LA Knight, and he's sort of just here to be, he's like an add-on. He's a big star, but he's like an add-on to the show, and maybe that's the best.
But with his limited time and his limited physicality, as he's admitted himself, is that not the most you can get out of him?
This might be the best usage out of him. Like, he probably shouldn't be doing I would even argue, even if he was in great shape, he shouldn't be doing matches every single week. Like, let's build up to something. And it would seem that Sikoa is the big match to build to, and that's the one big, instead of having every guy under the sun beat him, have one big loss on this run that hopefully goes better than Austin Theory.
You mean have Cena beat Sikoa?
No, I'm saying Sikoa beat Cena.
Because I can argue the same for Cena. Hasn't he lost, like, everything under the sun? His last several matches.
I mean, him and LA Knight just won at Fastlane.
A tag match. I mean, I'm talking about it.
Well, how many matches has Cena had since he's come back?
Well, he's lost the Theory. He lost to
that was WrestleMania.
Yeah, and then what was his match before that? I guess people don't really remember that far back anyway. So sure.
Pretty Deadly is back as Elton Prince makes a miraculous recovery because he is Elton Strong emerging from his wheelchair. He is saved. And they take on Butch and Ridge Holland. Corey Graves compares Prince's injury to Aaron Rodgers' torn Achilles, and Prince has made a miraculous comeback. And Michael Cole notes that Prince used to be the face of a dating app as well. So we learned that. There was a power slam by Prince onto Wilson. This is after Holland gets the big tag and uses a military press into a power slam. And then Prince does a back body drop to Butch on the edge and takes a belly to belly from Holland and indicates to the referee that he is hurt. And Jessica Carr is holding off Holland and then checking on Prince. And then all of a sudden there's a cheap shot by Wilson and Prince, a second miraculous recovery to roll up Holland in 9:05, and they pin him. And Jessica Carr just looked like she got played here.
It'd be very funny if that's what their excuse was. I got legitimately injured in the match, and then I had another miraculous recovery.
These are how miracles work. They are unforeseen.
I thought it was a great heel finish. I think it totally fits their characters and makes them that much more obnoxious. And to be quite honest, like pretty endearing, in like an Eddie Guerrero, like, cheat to win type of way. But for the moment, like there's still, I think, a lot of value in them being portrayed as this type of heel. I think they've done a great job of keeping these guys in the audience's consciousness during their downtime. I think the vignettes, though they haven't necessarily been like so abundant, they were around like long enough. I would say like a month maybe before their comeback, and I don't think they've lost anything upon their return. They might have actually gained something from the absence. So I think they've done a good job with them.
And they celebrated by wheeling Prince in the wheelchair. Maybe they're going to keep the wheelchair for the
sure.
Kayla is with the returning Carlito. Asks, what does it feel like to be back? He says it feels cool. Lashley shows up and remembers beating him up in the past, but that was a long time ago. So Carlito issues a challenge for tonight, but before Lashley answers, the Street Profits jump Carlito and leave him laying. The LWO, we're joined by Dragon Lee, come to check on Carlito, and then Bayley and Damage Control are in, and this leads to Zelina Vega and Bayley arguing and Adam Pearce making an impromptu match. So Carlito was just left for dead here.
Yeah, does that not is the match? That match is not next week. Next week they're doing Santos versus Montez Ford.
Yeah, they showed Ray and Carlito as though they would be in Santos Escobar's corner.
Gotcha.
So Carlito right now appears to be LWO adjacent, if not officially indoctrinated into the group.
You don't think he's officially in? He wore the shirt and everything with Bad Bunny, didn't he?
Well, lots of people have worn the shirt.
And they're all members of the LWO.
Okay. Well, what about Dragon Lee? Is Dragon Lee in?
That is a question. Yes. Okay. Hey man, if you're really into WWE in 2007, this is the nostalgia feud for you. Carlito versus Bobby Lashley, and you know what? Both of them look amazing, don't they?
Yeah. The Bloodline are in their office, and Reigns and Jimmy are talking about calling audibles, and they're asking which one of you is the QB. And Jimmy admits he's the second string quarterback. And Reigns says Jay is old news, but every time he sees him with the tag titles, it's disrespectful. It's a slap in the face. And Reigns is the only one who calls audibles, and Hot Roots, not you. And Jimmy responds, yeet.
Which Roman hates. He told him to stop doing it. So this felt to me like an official like acceptance back into the bloodline from Jimmy.
What a climax.
Yeah. I mean, this whole Jimmy run, I think, has been pretty questionable to me, I would say. Like, so the whole time, like, he suddenly comes back. Like, before he left, it felt like
feuding with Roman.
He's feuding with Roman, and it felt like the man was at least, like, smart and competent. He comes back, and he's portrayed as, like, the incompetent idiot as part of the bloodline. The hothead, even though that role was Jay, right? He's the hothead who just, like, acts up on himself and seemingly has no idea of, like, who Roman Reigns is or how Roman Reigns would react like all of us would.
And when he cost Jay the match at SummerSlam, like it wasn't just showing his loyalty to Roman. Like his explanation was, I don't want you to be poisoned like Roman is. Like it's always been, I didn't want you to fall into that level of being Roman.
And he has
that part has not been revisited here. Now it's more so like, it's just treated like he turned on his brother.
Sure. So the whole time, like, before Roman came back, I'm thinking, okay, like Jimmy's really putting it on just to infiltrate the bloodline so he can finally get his over Roman. And I don't think that seems like, I feel like I could safely rule that out now, because it seems like his return has been like, he's been genuine. And I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to feel about Jimmy from this point on. Is he just like the group idiot now? That
Maybe he's
like
brainwashing Solo, and that's his mission.
How? What's he brainwashing him with?
Yeet.
Mind to what effect?
Yeah. Okay. No, it's going to take some time. We're at a dead part of the season. Got to wait till Rumble time. Bayley and Zelina Vega, they went 2 minutes and 40 seconds, where Zelina has now incorporated a bottom rope 619. This looks exponentially harder balance-wise than Ray's version. To get that kind of rotation with using the
bottom rope? What's the difference?
Holding the middle rope and going underneath it. You need some core strength to pull that off.
Well, she looks like she's got a great core. So
the code red gets blocked.
Grace was trying to like do the math in his head of like half of each number would be. So I think he arrived at like 3, 1.5, and 4.5, which is like halves of each individual number, but not half of 619.
Well, he should have just gone with a new area code.
Yes, which would be 309.5. Okay.
Is that what we're going to call it now?
Okay, sure.
So anyway, she then goes for another 309.5 to Io Sky on the apron, but with her back turned, Bayley capitalizes with the Rose Plant and pins her in 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Io and Bayley attack Zelina until Charlotte Flair struggles in these heels to come down the ramp and enter the ring. I mean, she looks so non-threatening. Like she could barely keep her footing here. Not the best attire here for a run-in, but did enough to make Bayley and Sky flee.
Well, nobody expects to do a run-in, John. You know, it's an emergency. I have to go. I don't even have time to take my heels off. Maybe that's what you.
What were you here for tonight, Charlotte? Like, what was the course of action?
Well, she had a segment with Pierce, or sorry, Aldis.
Okay, but she didn't know that ahead of time.
Maybe she
was only announced tonight.
Oh, maybe she was scheduled for a meeting beforehand
with the mystery man. Well, who is this mystery GM? Triple H comes out, and Adam Pearce is there. And, we are on the road to Crown Jewel and Survivor Series, and it all starts tonight with the season premiere. The road to Crown Jewel begins. Mm-hmm. He calls Adam Pearce one of the unsung heroes who had a successful in-ring career. And for the past 3 years, he has done an incredible job as an official, overseeing both shows. But he won't be doing it alone anymore. So Adam Pearce has been promoted to be general manager of Monday Night Raw. It's like, is that a promotion?
Yeah, I don't know.
What was he before? We're also going to hire someone cold to do the exact same job on the other show, which is seen by more people.
What was his title before?
He never had a title. He was just official Adam Pearce.
So I guess that would technically be a promotion. You at least have a title now. We're going to pay you now. I guess, was he volunteering this whole time?
Well, Nick Aldis is certainly not coming in here as a volunteer. He's also a general manager. So, and you're doing less work.
Sure. Yeah.
Hey, if it's more money and less work, then I'd take that as a promotion. I don't got to travel on Fridays anymore. Done. So before he can announce who the general manager of SmackDown is, Dominic comes out and he complains about Judgment Day getting screwed out of their tag titles. And he's upset that Cody and Jay are defending the tag titles when they have to defend them on Monday against the Judgment Day. And Paul says that, well, this Adam Pearce is the general manager of Raw. You need to speak to the general manager of SmackDown, Mr. Nick Aldis. And Nick Aldis just poof appears out of nowhere from ringside. And he comes in and listen, Nick Aldis, I think he'll be very good in this role. Most of this crowd in Toledo, Ohio had no idea who this was.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have expected, honestly, like, because this man has never had a WWE run. He's never been in AEW. So I'm just trying to think like what national TV he was in other than Impact, and I think most notably was his run in the NWA and as part of the first All In. But that's speaking to a probably much smaller part of this audience.
Yeah, I think it would have been more pronounced if they had him come from the back and he comes out, where I think it would have been even more like an audience. Like certainly people watching this show, I think, know Nick Aldis, but it's not like he has a song that's going to generate a pop or is going to get that even. Like, sometimes at the Rumble, you'll get a surprise, like the Hurricane comes and the place is going to go nuts. Nick Aldis is not going to have that cachet with a WWE audience.
And they were smart enough to not do that because they probably knew that nobody really knows him yet.
So Aldis, who is dressed to the nines here, and now we have 2 former NWA champions running Raw and SmackDown.
Ooh, that's right. There must be more than that around.
Other NWA champion, they've got Steve
be.
Corino at NXT. Maybe he can run NXT.
I think R-Truth is still technically.
You're right. Yeah,
around.
He was a former NWA champion.
Cody,
yeah, Cody. Which you do have here. Even Aldis talking about Cody here. You have to, and like with Nick Aldis, the guy's 36, and
wow.
Even if they have one of those like they did with MVP, where it's like, okay, you'll come back, but you're just going to be a manager. You're just going to be this. There will come a time where you could do something like where this builds to a match or something like that. Mm-hmm. He's much younger than Adam Pearce. Yep. And funny enough, the one time that they did a show-long tease of Adam Pearce wrestling Paul Heyman, that SmackDown I remember it did a huge number. And it was just a tease all night that Adam Pearce was going to wrestle Paul Heyman. So I think it is something you can go to once a year where the GM wrestles. And Aldis is someone that can still do that. But he's a very good talker. And I think this is a role that, I mean, for him, like this seemed like this guy was never going to get any inroads in WWE. And he came in as a producer. And now, boom, this is a golden opportunity for him.
I mean, I would love to know how good of a producer he really was for him to somehow parlay that into like an on-air speaking role as the general manager, as the figurehead of the show. I agree with you, John. I think there's much more likelihood of him eventually entering the wrestling ring because, you know, he's much more closer.
How many guys on this roster are older than this guy? Like quite a lot.
Totally. Yeah. The youth is there. He also has the look that I think they look for. Like he's got the physique, you know, he's got the height, he's got everything that I think
he's almost too intimidating to be in the role of like your authority figure. You know what I mean? Like Adam Pearce has like
he will
the
tower
look of like a retired wrestler, and Nick Aldis, like this guy looks like he could go yesterday.
He like him talking to Chad Gable, like will make Gable like I don't know if he's gonna have to do like the splits thing, you know, like he's gonna tower over like a Chad.
Well, that's why he's on SmackDown. They're keeping him away from.
They have short guys on SmackDown too, don't they?
One thing I thought that, so Dominic is here to be the kind of the joke of the segment here. So Nick Aldis gets in here and he introduces himself and he wishes Adam Pearce the best and a healthy competition between us. And then tells Dominic, big fan of your dad, which is a good line.
Great
line.
And
Aldis brings up the mysterious trade for Jey Uso. Finally, SmackDown is going to get someone in return for Jey Uso. And added to SmackDown is Kevin Owens, who comes out and proceeds to stun Dominic. Now, the whole purpose of this segment is, I think part of it is to be like, oh, wow, Kevin Owens is now separated from Sammy and he's on SmackDown. And it's like, you're trying to like subtly emphasize like this split of shows with your Raw guy just in the ring here on SmackDown without any reason to be here on SmackDown in Dominic.
That's a very good point.
Like, why is he here? Like, should I be too concerned about Owens and Zayn being broken up when it seems like Zayn could just pop over if he feels like it?
That's a very good point. He's not even like a second of the tag team champions right now, which aren't Judgment Day. I mean, I don't know. Does the North American Championship grant you those?
Somehow, I think that's the unwritten rule. Any title belt gives you keys to the show you want to be on.
Yeah, I guess so. That's an aspect that they haven't really figured out, I don't think.
What do you think about Owens being the guy that they opted to use here? And I would think that Monday was sort of makes more sense of how clean that ending was, that was the end of Owens and Zayn, at least for now as a team.
I would personally, excuse me, sorry about that.
Don't get too angry. I think they're going to be fine on their own.
I'm outraged about the split of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. I would love to know if this was always like how far in advance this was the plan. If when they initially announced the trade, this was always going to be the plan. If when they were maybe teasing, you know, Jey Uso coming in for somebody else, that this was always the plan. Because it felt like the reveal here was kind of anticlimactic. It wasn't necessarily like built up to, and you also don't see the ramifications of the split, which I think could have, you know, been told for so much more drama. Like we had the story of, okay, Jey Uso's coming into, you know, enemy territory here, babyface locker room on Raw where he's already hated. And now he's also going to be taking away in exchange somebody that we actually like. Turned out to be Kevin Owens, but
Wasn't that a line that was stated on Raw? Like the person going is someone that's beloved in the locker room. Wasn't that said on the show?
I don't remember at this moment. But the point is, like, there could have been a story that I think you could have maybe told. But instead, on the one hand, it makes sense that you would have Kevin and Jay relieve that tension. Okay, number one, they could be building to a War Games where they'll have to work together. Number two, they might not be interacting so much anymore. But I also felt like it was a missed opportunity for a lot more maybe drama to be told, like maybe reacting. I thought it would be Zayn. I said I thought it would be Zayn because I thought that would be that much of a bigger gut punch to the WWE Raw locker room. Owens leaving, he's not even upset about it. Like he seemed to be happy to be on SmackDown, and it just seems like everything's just kind of peaceful, which is perfectly fine.
Got to keep his theme music and his name too.
Sure, that should be part of these drafts going forward. Take
Raw and SmackDown own the IP of their characters, and when they leave, they've got to reinvent themselves.
That's it. Anyway, it'll be fine. Like again, they might. He'll be showing up on Raw soon enough, everybody. So I don't ultimately think it matters all that much.
We'll never see Owens and Zayn in a ring together again. So that was the segment. He just stunned Dominic and shook hands with Nick Aldis. The Bloodline reacts to this. Reigns is not happy. And the fact that Cody and Jay are also running around here too. And Jimmy Uso's on my couch and says, I already called the play. And Jimmy's like, you're not being serious, are you? And Reigns says, no. But imagine if I was. And this is where he shuts down the yeet. He's like, stop saying that. I didn't know what was going on here. I don't know what the play was. I didn't know what the hot route was. I don't know what he was serious about, I didn't know what I was supposed to think about this. If it was to build up some tension between these two, boy, did I not sense any.
I get the sense they're trying to like recapture some of that Sami Zayn, like, Bloodline type of dynamic, or even like a Matt Riddle, Reddy or Orton type of dynamic where like one person is just like a complete idiot and very annoying. And the other is just like, oh, I'm so sick of you, but I secretly love you, like type of thing. I don't think they found it yet in this first segment.
They've got a ways to go. Yeah. There was a vignette for Dragon Lee, so he was not traded. Maybe Raw didn't want him. SmackDown just scooped him.
Maybe he was traded for Odyssey Jones or whoever was drafted that one time.
He's on quite the odyssey.
Yeah.
Chelsea and Piper meet Nick Aldis, and they want new championship belts because maybe they think the physical belts are cursed. So Italian leather, that's the way to go.
I mean, they could be right.
Might be.
Yeah.
Charlotte Flair enters, and Aldis watched Fastlane, and he thought that Damage Control cost her the win. So next week, Charlotte is getting a title shot against Io Sky on SmackDown. And then in the big moment, Flair turns around and bumps into Jade Cargill, who was there with Triple H. And Flair explains, I know who you are. It's nice to meet you. And Jade just says, it's my pleasure. And Flair ends it, oh, it will be. And there you go. One big tease for something down the road. And maybe another one coming up here as well.
Jade's third appearance over the past week.
So she's been to
Fastlane,
SmackDown, and NXT.
Tuesday. Yeah.
Didn't show up at Raw. So clearly she has her priorities.
She's waiting for the season premiere, John. You could expect her on Monday, I think.
Probably is, yes.
Yeah. What do you think about this strategy? This is very unconventional, the fact that they would have somebody appear across basically every show, not really doing a whole lot other than appearing, but keeping
I think they wanted to shoot a bunch of big angles for this season premiere, from Owens to Aldis, the big one being the face-to-face with Cody and Roman, and then this one. I'd be very curious if we look back and this was our tease for what could very well be 2 WrestleMania matches. If this was like the beginning builds for both of those, for Jade and Charlotte and for Roman and Cody, that we look back at the season premiere as sort of their kickoff with the first kind of hints towards where they're going.
When you think about dream pairings with Jade Cargill, I mean, really anybody on the roster, but like I think the first that would come to mind, or at least among the first, would be Charlotte, would be Bianca Belair, and I guess Becky as well. Those 3. Maybe Rhea too. Actually, anybody, honestly, and that's probably what makes her so valuable. But this is definitely a Mania-worthy match, I would say, in terms of like star power and what if.
How long do you hold off until you do Jade's first match? Do you do it as soon as Crown Jewel? Do you do Survivor Series or even on TV?
So more importantly, who that person is, because I think she has to look like obviously dominant, but I also think she has to look like really good. Who's going to make her look good, And Yeah, when you do it, Crown Jewel feels like it's Saudi Arabia just feels like such a weird place like to do, but you could. I mean, it would be on TV. I'm willing to bet it'd probably be after Crown Jewel. Maybe the Raw after Crown Jewel as like a big TV hook, you know?
Or you could hold it off till Chicago. I could see them doing it at Saudi Arabia. It's like a big match on the show, but those would probably be your targets.
She wouldn't be able to wear a lot of what she wears.
That's true.
But she'd had fun with it.
They've certainly gotten better with like the outfits for the women, like instead of like the giant t-shirts and such. Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso defending the tag titles against Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. So this was hilarious. Graves explains the Cody 1D, Michael, that you were calling it. They're now calling it another trip to the crossroads. Another trip to the crossroads. I rewound this to make sure I heard this right. So
Cole does not call it that in this match. I guess he already forgot.
He loves Cody 1D, and he is going to make that happen. Okay, that's his fetch.
How does he spell it? Is what I want to know. Is it Co-D 1-D?
The Cody 1D, like R2D2.
I'm going to say neither of those options are very good. Another trip to the crossroads. Where does another, like, what part of the Jey Uso equation is another? I guess he's another trip.
I can't tell you.
How about see you at the crossroads? I mean, that's at least like, you know, popular like hook. Ooh, see you at the crossroads.
Ooh, so crossroads.
Oh, Jesus.
They go through the break. Kevin Patrick notes, man, did you see the chemistry that Cody and Jay had at the press conference? This guy's the weirdest observations and brings them up at the funniest times.
I think it was his way of like bringing up the press conference, which did catch a lot of attention.
So we saw a power slam and disaster kick combo onto Austin Theory. Waller rolls in. He's hit with a disaster kick as well. And then Theory cuts off Cody with a Ushigoroshi. Jay stops the A-Town down, super kicks Waller out, and then super kicks Theory, which sets up the Cody 1D trip to the crossroads as Jay flies to the floor, and another a single trip to the crossroads by Cody alone pins Theory in 9:22. Pretty like, you know, I thought Cody and Jay, they look really good together here. And Theory and Waller, this is the role those two should be in. I thought this was like a fun TV match.
I thought it was almost like a perfect like TV showcase, you know, for the new tag team champions. I mean, it was a very basic match, just kind of built up to that big Cody, you know, tag, and then it got an incredible reaction. And I thought Waller and Theory were like kind of the perfect opponents for a situation like this. They're not so like off the map that you don't care about the match. Like, it's still seen as a somewhat significant match, but they're also a team that can definitely afford a loss to the champions without really even, you know, losing a pay-per-view caliber match. So I thought this was great.
And that leads to the Judgment Day facing them on Monday. Jimmy and Sikoa come out as Cody and Jay are leaving, and it's Roman's music. So Roman and Heyman follow, and Roman goes face to face with Cody. So this was the big moment on the show. Aldis gets in between them, and I think this was certainly pointing you in this direction with the two of them on SmackDown. And yeah, I thought this was really good because it gave people, you know, the sense of where they're going and to be determined when.
Well, I would say the immediate first stop on our crossroads is
Deadline.
I was going to say War Games.
Oh, yes, that too.
Where I think, you know, this is all very much like possible here with Cody, Jay, Kevin now, and then
Roman needs some backup, man. He's got what? It's 3 of them.
Yeah. I mean, you would presume LA Knight to be on the babyface side as well, and then they could always, you know, Braun Baker, you know, part of the Bloodline now, or at least potentially, right? So but yeah, like the War Games itself is very possibly a build towards Cody versus Roman number 2. And I thought this interaction was going to be very important. And Cody played it beautifully. Look at the way he looks at Roman. He's looking at him like he's looking at a ghost that's been haunting him, you know, every day of his life since April. He's looking at the end of his story. We're standing right in front of him. So I thought Cody, like, his facial expression was perfect here. And again, I would assume, listen, they might be doing, If The Rock's available, they'll do The Rock for WrestleMania. Does not mean that they should scrap whatever story that they've got planned out for Cody versus Roman, because eventually you're going to get the Cody versus Roman Rock
They just
or not.
superimpose Dwayne Johnson's face into this face-to-face for the
Use-
video
they-
package next year.
They'll use AI. Yeah.
Can we go another 6 months of hearing finish the story?
I think the audience likes it, man. We want to hear him finish the story, don't we?
Okay. Next week in San Antonio, Io and Charlotte for the women's title. Santos Escobar takes on Montez Ford. But the last match of the show, Solo Sikoa and LA Knight. It was a lot of selling from LA Knight. They go through the commercial, and then Knight comes off the top with a bulldog, but it's dropped with a Samoan drop. Sikoa misses a seated splash. Knight gets out of the way, and a flying clothesline takes Sikoa down, follows with the DDT, and then a Samoan drop gets countered with a power slam from Knight, hits his elbow drop. So much playing to the crowd here, and Sikoa stops the blunt force trauma. They're both down with clotheslines, and Jimmy Uso enters the ring, but is thwarted by John Cena, who hits the AA. And then Cena takes the Samoan spike. Knight doesn't see it and hits the blunt force trauma, pinning Solo Sikoa, a rare loss for Sikoa in 12 minutes and 53 seconds. And as Knight is celebrating, he hops off the turnbuckle and boom, gets speared by Roman, who just taunts LA Knight. So clearly where we are going.
Mm-hmm. A rare Sikoa loss, and he did have the Cena distraction as an excuse, but even with the distraction, a win over Solo Sikoa is a big deal, I think, in the WWE, and it's great booking for setting up LA Knight as Roman Reigns' next challenger. In terms of his in-ring, I think they're crafting his matches very wisely to be as simple as possible, emphasizing what he does do well, giving him basically the early John Cena playbook, or even the Hulk Hogan playbook.
I very much felt like a 2005 John Cena vibe, watching this. LA Knight, his matches are very basic, but the audience is with all his participation spots. The audience is with at the moment, but
they're using the for his comeback with all his punches and kicks and everything, and it all works. Again, 5 moves of doom. It's a tried and true formula, and when you're over enough through other factors, you don't need to do shooting star presses. And this guy certainly has enough to be a top guy.
So that was SmackDown, the season premiere. Are you looking forward to this season of SmackDown? Will it be the last season on Fridays?
What's the season finale going to look like? What are the seeds that they're sowing for the season finale? That you could tell already.
Well, it's going to be Farewell Fox. That's what the season finale is going to be.
That's going to come before the season finale. They're going to change stations, but wait, when is
the season? They will run till the end of September next year. I'm sure they will promote their first one on USA as the season premiere next year.
You're very, very true.
And maybe a new that was the other thing that Ari Emanuel stated. Not just Raw, but SmackDown. We will go to whatever night is needed. So I would not even though that press release said Friday Night SmackDown, I would not read that as gospel that SmackDown is staying on Fridays. And there's a lot of reasons to move it. Most of which would be I would be just over the moon if they move to another.
For John,
I don't think they're paying all these millions for my enjoyment. So we'll see.
I thought overall the season premiere was a very good, very productive, and I think newsworthy show. You had Roman coming back, and they had interactions with Roman with the rest of the roster of people that he's missed in this whole time. Having Roman and Cena in the ring together, I thought gave you a pretty, worthwhile moment. Good build to LA Knight versus Roman Reigns. You even had a big tease of Cody and Jay interacting with the Bloodline
and Jade and Charlotte. I like both of those teases. You're not getting those at the next pay-per-view or the one after that, but this is all I think we'll look back and it was okay, they planted a lot of seeds on this show.
Yeah, and as well the reveal of Nick Aldis as well as Kevin Owens as the trade finally coming over to SmackDown. So the game has changed.
Yes or no? Is Kevin Owens on Raw Monday night?
I think they have to do a goodbye, don't you?
I think so too. I think he's going to be on Raw.
He's just he'll go to Raw to pack his bags as if the lockers stay the same wherever they travel.
Maybe they'll leave all his stuff in a garbage bag. Then he comes back to SmackDown and just looks at Nick Aldis. It's like, man, could you believe they put all my stuff in a garbage bag?
Jeez, that's a bit of a deep cut. But,
okay.
All right.
That was SmackDown. And if you want to call in, you're welcome to do so. We have a few pieces of feedback and we will call it a day.
We have a lot of people who want to get in the phone lines to talk, and the link is open, available for all of you. So thank you all patrons for tuning in. Let's go first of all to Magan. Hey, Magan, welcome.
Hello.
What's going on again? Hi.
Okay, that season premiere, quote unquote, was pretty baller.
It was baller.
Yeah, Roman's about to have a nightmare of which he will never wake.
That should have been the name of the show title tonight. Roman's never-ending nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I mean, look, as much as I rag on, Roman's, coming and going over the last several months, shit is different when he's around. I mean, and the opening was very good, and I'm glad they dangled, Cena versus Roman again, which is like, I'm not interested. But I love that Cena put over LA Knight big time.
He did. Like, this whole run has been, you can see, like, he is here to get LA Knight up to that, assist him to that next level, and it's probably to do one big loss to Solo Sikoa. And believe me, there's not too many people, I think, that would just routinely come back, and like, that's sort of like, you just beat this guy like a drum. That's kind of the role of it. And I wouldn't overdo it either, and I don't think they're necessarily at that point yet. I
just hope LA Knight, comes out of this program with Roman with as much momentum, because I don't want to see it like him being. I don't want to see his run of success like come to an end just because he loses to him. Mm-hmm. Anyways, Cody and Jay and the tag match was very good, and Cody and Jay are like they're really clicking as a team, and okay, and I love that Nick Aldis is now the new authority figure for SmackDown. Ad Priest finally gets a break, and I was kind of expecting some sort of fallout with Owens being traded in place for Jay, because I mean, mm-hmm. I know the tag match ended without any hostility. It was basically like I was kind of hoping like Owens would like have some sort of like reaction to moving to SmackDown being split from Sammy, but mm-hmm. I know with War Games coming up, it's not going to be that much of an issue.
Well, I mean, that would have provided interesting character dynamic too, wouldn't it? If can they get along? I mean, we kind of make a joke about it all the time, but there would have been some interesting story there. But we don't know. On Monday, we'll see the Raw roster's reaction to it. We may not see it at all. They might just, accept it all. He's gone now. Oh well, let's move on. Like, we don't know.
You've also set up a way that so now Sammy is on Raw. At some point, Cody and Jay lose the tag titles, and you have Sammy and Jay have the opportunity to team up. So you have Cody being the mastermind that brought Jay to Raw. Jay, who had screwed Owens for all these months. Sammy, his best friend, is now teaming with the guy that he did not trust. All of these seeds are planted for an Owens turn down the road too on all his friends that are on Raw that had the collateral damage was I was the guy sent to SmackDown away from you because Cody brought Jay to Raw.
I am so not interested in Owens versus Zayn for the up team's time. I mean, no. I mean, for once they're split apart, but it's not because one turned out the other. I mean, I have no interest in seeing that again. Me personally, but I mean,
they would have to find a way to really refreshen it. Yes, because a lot of people probably feel that way. But the story is there, and the reasons are there.
Yeah, a few more things. The Cody Roman stare down is like, yeah, they're dangling that carrot. I don't care about Rock versus Roman anymore. They got to do this rematch in Philadelphia. And secondly, Cody tweeted today that he did one more thing while he was guest GM on NXT. Mm-hmm. And he says, tune in on Tuesday to find out what that is. So I think with all this as the GM for SmackDown, Pierce going to Raw full time, NXT needs an authority figure, but I don't know who that's going to be.
Do they though? I mean, isn't Sean technically the authority figure?
Well, I mean, but Sean, Sean is the GM to some extent, but they don't want to overexpose him because they want to manage his appearances so that it means more when he shows up. So I mean, they need somebody like a proxy for Sean when things get too far.
All right, we'll see. Thank you very much, Magan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care. Talk to you next week. Let's go up next to Cory. Welcome to the show, Cory.
Hey guys, hope you're having a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
So, I should preface my comment with a couple of very important things. One, I am Jewish. Two, I'm around the same age as MJF. I skew a little older than him. Three, he's built from Plainview, Long Island. That's not far from where I grew up and where I went to school. That means that we were both a part of the same county education system. That means that we both probably went to the Long Island Holocaust Education and Tolerance Center for field trips. It is a big part of what living in New York is education about the Holocaust, because we have like one of the most populous Jewish populations in America. Being a part of the specific Nassau County education system, we have access to like a Holocaust education and tolerance center where we actually spoke to Holocaust survivors and heard their stories. This is something that has been ingrained in me since I was like in 4th grade. And probably also like MJF, when I was in high school, I heard every regurgitated Eric Cartman joke that you could possibly imagine, you know, just every unoriginal South Park quote. So when MJF talks about wanting to want to, you know, tell this story through pro wrestling, and he says, what is it, to anyone that thinks this can't be done through the avenue of pro wrestling, then that's an indictment on things that have happened in this sport past. I'm not giving wrestling the benefit of the doubt, man. I'm not. Look, pro wrestling, and I'm sorry I'm about to speak in like kind of broad strokes here. Pro wrestling is it is a juvenile form of entertainment. That is sort of its appeal in a lot of ways. It speaks to base instinct. It is not subtle in its storytelling. We can say that there is subtle storytelling in pro wrestling, but I believe that's relative. I don't think that pro wrestling as a medium has the level of tact to really tackle the subject matter of anti-Semitism. And we're going to throw out the timing of all of this because we shouldn't, but I'm going to.
I honestly believe, Cory, I think there would be criticism other weeks too. I think it was accentuated this week of all weeks. But a question I would have for you, even if this could be done in whatever you deem a tactful way, is that something you yourself as someone Jewish are looking for in professional wrestling?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I just for me personally, I just like historically, wrestling has never tackled any hot button issue well at all. Muhammad Hassan, Billy and Chuck, like Gold Dust, like come on, like I'm sorry if I'm like kind of, I don't mean to trash pro wrestling, but it's just
to play
like,
devil's advocate just briefly, Cory.
Yeah.
All those instances you just mentioned were from one company.
Yes.
They were not from AEW. Now, is that a reasonable excuse? Just again to play devil's advocate.
I mean, hey, you could certainly give the argument that this is a different company, a different cultural context. I just don't think the medium is built for it. I truly, honestly don't believe that. And I am willing to be proved wrong. I would love to be proved wrong. That means that there is truly space in growth for the type of stories that can be told. I just truly do not believe that like pro wrestling by design is sort of built for this. It's like, and ultimately, even if the storyline is quote unquote successful, what is the moral here? Anti-Semitism is bad? Of course it is. The dude beats up guy for being anti-Semitic. Yeah. Okay. But like, it's so cartoonish. Like, oh, I'm Juice Robinson holding up a roll of quarters with your name on it. It's so cartoonish, and it's so like I don't know.
I totally understand what you're stating, Cory, and I feel like it's like, listen, I really applaud like the stuff that MJF like showcases, and the fact he gives a voice to Jewish representation. That is something that has that I'm sure many people look as very like aspirational to see this individual as successful as he is and to speak about this. And I just look at it from like how many people are really like wanting this out of their professional wrestling. Like there is a message that you could certainly send of like, anti-racism. It doesn't
Yes.
mean I think you want heels coming out and like using the N-word for heat.
Yeah.
And even with like the baby face prevailing in the end, like that might be the right message. Is that what you want on your air? Is it something that you want coming out of your heel's mouth on television that can be just shortened to a clip, and how that paints you, where right or wrong, AEW is saddled with the history of professional wrestling. When you see a clip of, like, if you were to take this clip from this past Tuesday and throw it onto a news outlet, it's just, look at pro wrestling, and rightly or wrongly, look at what they have stooped to.
And I should really make note that I am speaking specifically to North American wrestling, because I mean, if you look back at Damian Abraham's documentary series, The Wrestlers, there was that one episode dedicated to the women of the women who like kind of act out as a form of therapy, like their abuse, their histories of abuse through wrestling. Like that I think is wholly separate for what we're talking about, which is the history of North American pro wrestling, which has given me a carte blanche to not give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to making a storyline like this and make it palatable, substantive. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my word there, but you know what I mean. Just it's something. I have not been given any reason to believe historically, because time and time again, wrestling can just lets me down in terms of that kind of storytelling, and not that I had any belief that it could do that in the first place.
Yeah. So I first of all, I'd thank you for calling in, Cory, and sharing maybe like, you know, that like your complete raw thoughts about this. I'd love for you to like call us back once we see the result of this storyline, and I'd love to know your assessment of it afterwards, if you choose to watch it, of course. I also feel like for MJF himself to, you know, what I would assume, you know, create this storyline and to suggest it, I would think that he'd be sensitive to these issues. He's a bigger wrestling fan than any of us could ever dream to be. And what do you think, you know, is making him confident that he could tell this story? And beyond that, is there benefit to exposing even an audience to talking about anti-Semitism the way that we are right now?
So I cannot speak for the mind of MJF. I that is absolutely 100% something I can't do. Here's the thing: when it comes to people who believe that they can do like things with the art form that they work with, there are some people that aim higher than others. He is aiming for, in my opinion, the highest possible thing you can make. And that is, I'm not going to say highbrow pro wrestling, but pro wrestling that is subversive, maybe. Pro wrestling that actually really is pointing a finger and asking questions. And that's something that I don't think has been done well in the last, like, I couldn't even tell you how many years. He is trying to he is trying to be the change in the exact thing that I am complaining about. And I don't think either of us are right over the other. I'm willing, like I said, I'm willing to see this out, and hopefully it lands on 2 feet. Just for me right now, I just think that pro wrestling is not the right venue for this. Like, this ain't Oz. This ain't American History X. This is All Elite Wrestling, you know? It's not something that I, you know, this is the company that brought you Mimosa Mayhem and Stadium Stampede.
You have every right to be skeptical, and I completely understand the sensitivity when it's basically, this is going to be a story that represents you, and it's going to be a story that represents your life, and that could be very uncomfortable to, you know, try to witness on screen. So again, I'd love to continue to follow your thoughts as they evolve, as the storyline progresses, and thank you for sharing.
Of course. Have a good night, guys.
Thanks a lot, Cory.
Thank you, Cory.
Thank you.
Do want to also make mention that MJF himself, so coming off of Tuesday, he did respond to some of the criticism online and used the maybe attention and platform to also promote an appearance he made for Stand Up to Jewish Hate at the Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts, and he also just released a video recapping his appearance at the event as well. So
yeah, this is Robert Kraft's group that he assembled a panel that MJF was a part of. So you can see that video up on his Twitter. Yeah, this is the members of the panel and Robert Kraft, who founded this a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's one of the topics coming out of Tuesday that I certainly did not expect to get into heading into this week in pro wrestling, but this is one of the biggest conversations in pro wrestling right now. Let's go to our next phone call. Let's go here to Vineet from Los Angeles. Welcome, Vineet. Hey.
Hi, John. Hi, Wai. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're coming in perfect.
All right, perfect. So I wanted to ask a question about something related more to post wrestling than the wrestling this week, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
So firstly, I've been now a member of the cafe for about a year, and I think the content that you both put out, as well as the network around you that you've built to put out content, is fantastic. And with a toddler, I have a lot less time to watch the actual wrestling, so a lot of the times I enjoy following. So a lot of times I'm following through you and your contributors. So really appreciate that.
So you're playing your toddler our podcast, which I highly encourage.
It's funny. Sometimes in the car, I'll be trying to listen to post wrestling on the way to drop him off to daycare, and he's like, "No, Wheels on the Bus." So you are not at the level of Wheels on the Bus, unfortunately. But sometimes
we can do our review in song. We can.
If you ever dropped some singing, it'll probably give me a couple more minutes to listen to post wrestling. So anyway.
Just on that note, like my Oscar, my son, he's 14 months now, and I don't know if this is indicative maybe of our parenting style, but like he's learned to go no. So it's probably telling us we should probably not be saying
when he wants the wiggles. That's when you say no.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah, I think my kiddo's a year and 9 months, so a little bit older than Oscar. But yes, I remember that phase well. That phase is still happening. Anyway, so my question regarding the post shows is, so when in general, I think the shows have been fantastic. Like Bruce and Karen's recent New Japan show is fantastic. Mm-hmm. One show that particularly I've been really enjoying every week is Collision Course. And at first, I think you two are phenomenal at, analyzing shows and breaking them down. And so at first I was a little bummed when I learned you weren't going to do the show, but I think that show, with its various guests, but especially with that key regular pairing of Kate and John Cena, has been fantastic. I would say, on the level of the John and Wai, analysis and shows.
Hey, hold on a second. Don't get crazy, okay? No.
You might have to edit that out later.
We're not John Cena here. We're not putting anyone over.
Yeah. They're still rookies. I guess they have to.
No, they're great.
They're amazing, honestly.
But yeah, I think that show is fantastic. So one, I just wanted to hear generally your thoughts on how that new weekly show that you're not doing is going, and two, what, if you agree with me that you think it's going well, what do you think is going really well and that those two are doing that you as experienced broadcasters see as very strong. And again, just appreciate the channel, appreciate the community and the content. So thank you.
Really appreciate the call, Vineet. One we could surely clip out and use as a promotional tool for future episodes. Thank you, Vineet. Appreciate it. I've been incredibly happy, or to say the least, with the way Collision Course has been going. I think Kate is incredible. When I listen to her analysis, and we don't always see eye to eye on a lot of things, but that's why we have her. We want somebody who has a very original viewpoint and can express it as eloquently as she does every single week. Beyond that, both her and Sino, they watch everything. They have knowledge of everything. As I speak, they're talking about I don't know, the House of Glory show that John Cena is attending right now. So they're certainly more knowledgeable about all of this than I am. But yeah, I've been incredibly happy.
Yeah, I mean, like their wealth of knowledge is like super deep. Like it's always like we're always like curious of like different pairings of how they're going to work. And I think like I just think like the world of Kate. I think that her ability to just have such a different analysis of all these different segments. It's I find it really refreshing to listen to her because it expands my thoughts on different subjects that maybe I didn't approach with certain thoughts. And Sino is just an encyclopedia. So
he's such a completist. Okay. And that's not just because he watches everything to recap within 15 minutes, but every detail about a show, every little news item that might be out there relating to a professional wrestler, he's usually on top of it. Usually the first one to let me know. Maybe even in some cases, John as well. So the combination of those two, and on occasion, Bruce Lord, who I think is also, first of all, amazing with Karen on the New Japan shows, but anytime he's filled in for Collision, it's just like, it's such a pleasure to listen to really all three of those voices.
Yeah. I mean, me and Wayne need to like, catch up.
We're not as good as us. Okay.
We're getting lapped by everybody. Oh, it's great. We have a lot of great voices. We're very lucky to have here on the network that graciously give us a Saturday night off.
Yes. And by the way, Bruce Lord and David Myers just released an edition of Postmarks this past week with Mannie from Pacoima. So admittedly,
where is Pacoima? Find out. Legendary Pacoima.
Find out. I've not listened to the whole episode yet, but I'm very much looking forward to it. It's on the feed right now in the Post Wrestling Cafe. Let's go to Andy B up next. Hi, Andy.
Hi, guys. How are you doing? Can you hear me?
We're doing well. Yes, we can hear you.
So, guys, I wanted to say I went with a friend to a sports event that was purportedly sold out this last weekend, and then he noticed that there were a few empty seats. So I was able to explain to him that all sporting events have an average of 10% drop off. So who's to say that he didn't learn anything from all of it?
Excellent.
We'll clip this one for Brandon. See, don't you feel so much more informed that you can tell your friends about how the ticket industry works?
Did you get into paid versus what are we talking about? You comped,
tickets distributed.
That's it.
Oh, absolutely. We got into the whole thing, turnstile counts and the whole thing. I even put him on to the Pollock and Thurston podcast.
Oh man, Andy, you're just making us blush here.
No worries, guys. So I just wanted to say, what did you guys make of this entire Tuesday Night War thing? Because to me, I didn't really get like a whole lot out of it, especially from the NXT side of things. It was just a lot of like cameos and like hot shotting. I didn't get like any like substance out of it. Even on the AEW side of things, it's just that they put together like a lot of matches in a hurry. So from like that entire about 4 hours of pro wrestling, the only two things I really enjoyed were like Christian Cage's character work and the Bryan versus Swerve Strickland match.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope that this head-to-head thing doesn't become a regular thing again after the new TV rights cycle, because I cannot handle either the ratings or the cage match discourse.
Well, yeah. I mean, I certainly don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that that could happen. Because
when's the next head-to-head?
Well, we have the Friday in November, November 25th with Collision and SmackDown.
Well, one's network, one's like Collision's Collision.
I don't think it's really not apples to oranges comparison that night, but they still might treat it as such where they load up, but we will see. Again, I look at all the shows, and I wouldn't say of all the shows of AEW and WWE, I wouldn't say any are married to one night of the week, and that includes Raw. So the idea of coming out of this Tuesday and feeling like we want to go head to head with a Dynamite in the next cycle, and we're with a broadcast partner that is more than gung-ho to do so as well. I would not dismiss that in the least, but I mean, again, it's still unknown where all these programs are going to land. But in terms of Tuesday, I mean, I wouldn't state that, like, I watched both shows and I enjoyed them for different reasons. I felt, again, with NXT, yeah, it was a lot of, if you want to call it like stunt programming with all the cameos, but I thought that they were there generally for a purpose to hopefully, like, yes, they're there to draw the number that night, but hopefully as well, some of the talent at NXT can get some of that star power from them. And we'll see if that is actually realized in the weeks to come. But there's also the question, like, is is a Becky Lynch or a Dominic showing up now? Is it going to have the same power after we just threw everything against the wall? And now you have your audience that you've heightened the expectations of what a big appearance is for NXT, that, you know, a Dominic, he meant more a month ago than he would like if he shows up this Tuesday, for instance.
Yeah, certainly. You know, there's going to be a huge come down. And how will they sort of maybe, I don't know, mitigate the feeling of the next episode of NXT being a lot less than what came before?
You really could have spread that number from Tuesday out over like 2 months. Like really, you could have done one night that's built around the Undertaker showing up. You could have done another where a Cena's there, where a Cody's there.
Yeah, I mean, this was
that's not the game. Like that. Like,
the game was
one night.
The game was about the battle, and I think in some sense it was to make up for their basically losing, you know, the original Wednesday Night War, at least in their mind, and you know, whatever. Like, it's hard for me to read their minds about why they did all this, but I think that I agree with Andy, you, that, like, I mean, Tuesday was not at all about like building, you know, even to Halloween Havoc. It was about kicking the competition's ass in the ratings, and they put most of their focus on it. But again, there was the convenience, I think, of having these people around. Let's have Carmelo Hayes walk out with, you know, John Cena. Let's have him leave the arena with the Undertaker. I mean, you can make the argument that, I don't know what, like several hundred more thousand people now know who Carmelo Hayes is that wouldn't be watching NXT. I think there was a good showcase of like some, you know, like really solid wrestling on the show as well. But I just ultimately realized it was not a night where that was the priority. The priority was to, you know, kick the competition's ass.
And okay, so just before I wanted to run, I just wanted to make a comment about the state of media literacy amongst the wrestling fandom. Unfortunately, I spent a little more time than I should have on Twitter this last week, and it is hilarious to see that people are still swearing CM Punk is turning up at Survivor Series because some Twitter account tweeted that they're still in talks with him, when people like Dave Meltzer and Sean Ross Sapp are saying that they're not in negotiations anymore. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andy. It's an issue not just in professional wrestling, but I think with all news right now, you know, with the way, I don't know, social media is just kind of structured, with the way X is being run right now.
That's a major thing right now, with like
huge,
much more serious with Israel and Gaza. But like you have like journalists that are like having very difficult times, like disseminating like fact from like false news that is out there, of like trying to rely accurately of like people that are on the ground there.
I truly feel like media literacy should be something that's taught in schools, you know, like by like people on the cutting edge of that know what it's like to experience modern media, not just people that have studied, like, I don't know, Marshall McLuhan or something like that. Like, it's changing.
Wait till we go through this next presidential cycle and the usage of AI. Like, AI is going to change all of this, and it's not just going to be a case of like, you know, people that are just like lazy, that like you are going to have people that are like genuinely going to be fooled by the usage of technology increasing at the level it's going to be. Like, this is only the tip of the iceberg. Like, it is 5 years from now, I have no idea what like online news dissemination is going to reflect, and people that are going to be I just think trust in news is going to plummet even further, and that's a really scary reality.
So my only recommendation is, if you find a source that you can trust, stick with it, but still question them. Obviously, you know, you have to question everything that you do read, but some are going to be more, I guess, you know, trustworthy than others. And support like good journalism. You know, if you really truly feel like there's good work being done that's, you know, helping separate like fact from fiction, then, you know, support it, because it's not necessarily a thriving industry, I would say. All right. Thank you for some really thoughtful calls here. So let's go up next to Brian. Welcome to the show.
Hey,
good welcome
tonight. Yeah, good review tonight. Fun show overall. I thought there was a lot of fun wrestling this week. The real winners in wrestling this week were the fans. As long as they weren't being territorial, trolling jerks, they were the winners. That all said, my favorite match this week was Bryan Danielson and Swerve Strickland. That is outstanding. But I mostly just have a bunch of questions to ask, but they're really short ones and hopefully simple ones. Okay, first, with Nick Aldis run the show, that is definitely going to be on USA next year. and Pierce running the show with the indeterminate future. And this development made me think of this question. If Raw and presumably NXT go to Amazon, does that mean the US version of the WWE Network moves from Peacock to Prime Video, or is that Peacock deal firmly in place beyond 2024?
Yeah, the US rights for the WWE Network, that's a separate deal that is not up until like early 2026. So even if you saw Raw move to an Amazon, hypothetically, that wouldn't affect the Peacock deal until several years afterwards.
Do you know when they could start negotiating for something like that?
Well, typically in these deals, there's an exclusivity that you can negotiate with the incumbent, and then there's like, it wasn't all that long ago that Raw and SmackDown left their exclusivity period.
So it's not something they could package with like Raw, for instance, at this point.
No, I mean, not knowing the specifics of the deal, I would think like that would not be possible, especially this many years out. And that WWE Network deal is going to be very interesting because that's the one people are going to be looking at of a possible packaging with like a UFC deal. And like that is one where you could like bundle something together if TKO wants to do such a thing.
Very good. Yeah, thank you for that. And okay, moving on. Like SmackDown already answered the question I had about Jade Cargill about like who could she face specifically at WrestleMania, and I think we have that answer already kind of cast out there. But another question about possible incoming people. This was definitely brought up on recent shows in the post-Perez family, but what are the chances that the mystery men that attacked Jay White were the Bullet Club War Dogs with David Finlay in the devil mask?
Possible. Anything's possible right now.
Yeah.
So David Finlay attacking Jay White while framing MJF. And what's the end match or feud that you would get out of that?
I imagine the focus would be this new version of Bullet Club taking out Bullet Club Gold and putting Bullet Club Gold on the sidelines so that we get
didn't though.
Well,
I mean, it does call back to Jay's Loser Leaves New Japan match, right? With Eddie Kingston.
That's not an AEW story.
Well, I mean, you kind of have, they're playing the New Japan characters.
Right. And they didn't put them on the shelf yet or on the sidelines yet, but that could happen in full gear potentially.
Yeah. I'll say, like, given the lack of follow-up, it's been mentioned. I think they have to pay that off at some point, but I think they really lost a lot of the wind in the sails of that angle by having Jay he's back a week later. He's not selling the effects. I don't know. It just kind of took some of the drama out of it, but it is a loose end they do need to tie up.
Well, I imagine they'll do another attack at some point. Maybe this one
second attack.
Serious. Yeah, not necessarily on Jay White. Yeah, well, I mean, they're masked. You know, they can pop up multiple times. I think it needs to be if you're going to try to, like make this feel like a big thing.
I mean, it could be a group that they start attacking other people too. It doesn't have to be limited to Jay White. I mean, it could just be this group that everyone assumes it's MJF, and then you reveal it, and it's a longer reveal.
Just going back to the War Dogs, I mean, I guess some of that is dependent on like how popular they might be with an AEW audience. I don't know if they're that big right now to an AEW audience. Who are we talking about? Clark Connors and all that. Like they're just trying to establish themselves in New Japan. Like it's Bullet Club versus Bullet Club, but I don't know if that's that attractive these days when you're talking about like two pretty like derivative, like lesser than versions of the Bullet Club.
This is how you salvage it. Okay, the next attack, kick someone's head off, and it's Nakajima under the mask. Okay, and all things are safe.
How about
and then MJF has to defend the title against Nakajima. Okay.
Yeah.
What if they attack Cardblade, and it's like not either they cut off Cardblade's head, or if
shouldn't that be reserved for the Acclaimed and there's scissors?
Oh, maybe. But what if like Alice Coughlin like cuts through the center of Cardblade and just pokes his head through the center of it with his bugged out eyes, like he's Jack Torrance in The Shining? Could work like that.
These are all valid ideas, Brian.
But, okay,
could all come to fruition.
One last question, then I'll hang up, and it's movie talk. What are your thoughts on the trailer released this week for the Iron Claw?
Oh, I wanted to talk about that tonight, actually. Yeah.
Thank you, Brian.
So there was a screening in June, and I had heard like the who had seen it, like it didn't sound like all that promising. And I'm going into this movie with the expectation that I will probably be let down by this film. It's just, I think anytime you are adapting something to a movie and you really do know the story, it's going to leave a lot of holes. That said, I thought this trailer was really good. I thought that they Fritz comes across like way more dark than I think you were maybe anticipating him being portrayed as.
Yep.
The casting, I think the casting was pretty good. Like they've got some, serious names attached to this. I love the fact they have Blue Oyster Cult here in the trailer on top of it. So I would say if you're a wrestling fan and you're just going based off the trailer, I think it would be enough to make you want to see this movie. So I don't know if it's we will see how it holds up. It's such a complicated, complex story that I don't think 90 minutes is going to do justice to. But regardless, it's I think something that wrestling fans will be intrigued by if you're aware of the Von Erichs. Like we are several generations removed from this.
I think the experience of watching this film is going to be very different for somebody who knows deeply the story, and like historians or people that are just kind of stepping in and experiencing it for the first time. But I have high hopes just for it as a movie itself. Like A24 is a pretty serious film studio. They produced the Academy Everything Everywhere All at Once, the Academy Award winner this year. So I'm looking forward to it quite a bit. I thought it looked good, like the trailer, and I think more importantly, it's going to expose a lot of people to the story that didn't know about it before. Maybe not to the depth of maybe even the Dark Side of the Ring episode, but a lot more people are going to be checking out the Dark Side of the Ring episode as a result. So it tells me, but between the studio and the cast, that this is going to be like given a really good effort, and those are at least my hopes.
It's also the kind of movie though that I think it's we're already talking about a very niche film. Like I wouldn't have high aspirations for this at the box office, but if you couple the fact that if the strike is still ongoing and they can't even get out and promote this thing, it's really going to hurt this. Like the fact this is coming out like where it is, like I'm sure the expectations are not that high to begin with, but that's just going to be another, like, you're not even going to be able to get that word.
John, I just wanted to add on that actually.
Sure.
Yeah. I read a while ago that they worked out a deal because it's A24 and other studios not associated with the AMPTP or whatever, that the cast has been granted permission to promote the movie around the time it comes out.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So
they seem exempt. They're like a studio that's actually
right, because they do have the exemptions that various like independent studios have. Okay. Well, then that's at least one thing that's going for it if they can promote it.
I shared the same thoughts about A24 producing like quality films and this benefiting this story. So hopefully it'll turn out good, or hopefully I'll like it, and hopefully or maybe I know Marshall Von Erich tweeted about like the aspect of God and religion in the story and how that was true to their family story. So maybe it'll appeal to that audience too. So who knows? But yeah, thanks for taking my many questions.
Thank you, Brian.
So much, Brian, as always. Thank you. Talk to you next week. Let's go up lastly for our phone calls. A lot of great calls tonight. So Hanzi, close.
Don't break the streak.
I'm sorry. No, I mean, if the discourse has done one thing for me this past week, because even I couldn't take it, so I actually went out and did open mic for a stand-up comedy. Whatever.
What?
No way.
At Comedy Bar yesterday, it was like a late night show, and people were digging it, but I wasn't like the best.
Congrats, man! That's like
awesome.
That takes a lot to go up there and do something cold.
Had you done it before?
Well, I mean, I guess you can say like me performing on streaming or being on different shows, right? You know what I mean? Because I was on like this guy. This guy's familiar with you guys, Matt Binder. He's a wrestling fan, but he also covers politics. So I was talking to him this past week, and I said calling into post wrestling in your shows, because like I have like a lot of like I don't like boring you guys with my political thing, whatever, right? But I try to explain to him my dumbed down philosophy about like how I was dumbed down, so I can like kind of articulate how people can be lured into like propaganda throughout like the 2010s. Because like this past week, like it's a remix of Bush era rhetoric plus 2010s misinformation where like they're intertwining, and it's like you can't tell what's real anymore. And if you have empathy for both sides, like of like the citizens, at least you're getting heat from like bad faith actors who are telling you you're not pure enough. So you know what I mean? Like so my heart goes out to everyone affected. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And it was a cool thing to do, whatever, which ties into about the MJF stuff and just like wrestling's history a little bit. I'll just say, like, I think what makes it different now is that because a lot of these a lot of these wrestlers are terminally online themselves, and everything they do is like dissected. Like if Kevin Kelly promotes like a Sound of Freedom poster on his Facebook, it's gonna be discourse. If Bayley has Jordan Peterson's book like being read, whatever, all of a sudden it's discourse, right? So I'm saying that, like, in the midst of all this, I'm willing to if MJF has a good vision for it, I'm willing to see how he does it. But like with the way that I feel like a lot of people in the wrestling world have like fundamentalist mindset with some of their like current issues, it does make it harder. It makes it uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Because I just look at, like, I don't know if Tony Khan's intent was to like push like accounts to like be more racist towards Swole, but the amount of venom that got sent her way from that kind of stuff, and like
I don't think that was the intent.
I'm saying, it's not the intent, but that's like the reaction, and he kind of like, by being this character online, he kind of amplifies it, like, you know what I mean, like, and I don't blame him, because I feel like WWE, they do their shit as well, like, you know what I mean, like I understand that kind of thing, but I feel like by constantly being online and constantly like giving the entertainment dollar more focus, I feel like it takes away from your product. And I know people who, again, if people who haven't lived through the Attitude Era and you're enjoying this, hey, that's cool. I can understand that this is new for a lot of people. But because I feel like over the last 20 years, like the discourse, whenever it overshadows, it's like the product that it just seems more and more the product doesn't fucking matter anymore. You know what I mean? And it feels like people are more focused, like by putting focus on Cena and Taker not being on a show with 1 million viewers. Yeah, you're also putting attention to Edge, who hasn't wrestled for a show that got 600,000 viewers or 300,000 on Collision. You're pissing on your own main event guy. And I really hope the guy can. He's tweeting like it's me, like against Howard Stern, when like I would irrationally go at go at people. You know what I mean? And it's one thing for me, but like no one's like, I'm on charge of a company, and this guy is like leading by example. So to me, at least, I want to see where it goes with like the MJF stuff, and I really hope that he does do it in a tasteful way, whatever. But I don't blame people for not giving carte blanche to shit. You know what I mean? Because just look at ACH, man. He got exiled for calling out racism in wrestling, and now you don't even hear from him anymore, really. You know what I mean? And it sucks, because there's a lot of people that throw vitriol, even if the companies don't intend on that happening. And before I go, when Brian was mentioning, who could be behind the whole Bullet Club attack and all that, I'm not saying that this is true, but I saw a good post about how they thought that maybe it could be like, maybe this whole CM Punk thing has been like a grand kind of work for them, whatever. I'm not saying it is, but that would be kind of
you're
cool.
just gonna throw it out there.
If he attacked,
it's not gonna be CM Punk.
Well, it's not gonna be CM Punk, but I thought like with Jay White being attacked, I was with you guys on the fact that it wasn't a long enough attack. But if it wasn't MJF, then that would mean that the guy who attacked Jay White didn't want him hurt enough, because he knew he was putting a target on MJF's back, because MJF's not a trustworthy guy. So I don't feel it's MJF, because I think if it was MJF, I think he would have actually got rid of Jay White like even longer. And I think the fact that Jay White's there is supposed to put more of a target on MJF. So I'm thinking it's going to probably end up being Cole. You know what I mean? And honestly, I'm not liking these Roddy and Cole segments. You know what I mean? This is me. But I think, I don't think it's going to be MJF. I just think it's going to be
CM Punk.
I mean, I would put that out there, but I mean,
no, don't put it out there.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, man. That's cool, man. And listen, thanks for over the years being motivation for me to have more confidence. Your shows helped me get confidence back, where I feel like it was a step to get into finally doing stand-up comedy. Even if it lasts or not, I don't know if it will, but thank you for helping me find my confidence back and not putting me in a Howard Stern position and making me a character that, you know, just loses his mind and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I need to change the gimmick up a little bit. You know what I mean? But thanks again. Awesome. I love your shows this past weekend. Peace out.
Hanzi, I mean, again, you provided this for yourself. You know, you're the one who decided to call in. You're the one who decided to, you know, like, I think be a very entertaining caller that a lot of people look forward to. So you don't really have to, like, you don't have to thank us at all.
Well, I mean, listen, I'm not saying you guys are the sole reason, but I mean, you guys have helped.
No. We're like 95% of the reason.
Yeah, for sure. 95%. Like, I mean, listen, like getting a Hanzi chant at your gathering, man, like that, like I never thought that would happen. Like that, last time that happened was at a Howard Stern event where I beat the bodyguard Ronnie the limo driver in a arm wrestle, and that was like the last time I really got cheered for.
Now you're addicted. You're addicted to the pop.
Yeah.
And this
there
is
were
all
so
you live
many
for.
people opening their mouths chanting at Hanzi that I contracted COVID from that chant. So I mean that's how many people were like just letting their
what? Did you get COVID after that?
Yeah, that's when
right
I got
after. Oh no, I'm sorry. I forgot. I didn't put the time together.
It was that week. Anyway, well, Hanzi, congrats, man. That's a real cool thing that you got up there and do that. So let me and Wayne know next time you have a big open mic night.
Yeah, what are your tour dates here? This is plug away.
The guy who did the open mic at Comedy Bar, he told me, "Yo, come back. That was a really good, entertaining set. Like it was like
there you go.
It was like a late night talk show set." Where you can either sit down on the couch and just converse with them or do 3 minutes and all that kind of stuff. And I was messing up, but I kept like ad-libbing to like make myself more interesting so people were actually laughing and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, but thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate that. Peace out.
All right.
Thank you, Hanzi. Appreciate it.
We have 2 pieces of feedback here, and I'm going to give
we have 1 piece of feedback, John.
Well, I was going to take the one, but we'll just go to the star this week, Mannie from Pacoima, a very Elton Strong yes boy. SmackDown is pretty deadly once again. I'm very excited for Mystico's AEW debut. Yes, we didn't even talk about that. Mystico will be on Dynamite next week, taking on Rocky Romero. So this will represent at least a relationship with CMLL. And when the NWA World Historic Middleweight Champion faces off against the NWA World Historic Welterweight Champion in the pound-for-pound crown match, that referring to Rocky Romero. Hopefully this partnership helps bring eyes to talent like Stephanie Vacour and Moscar Dorada. Tonight, Vikingo faced off against Swerve. This was at Defy's Primo Lucha show. Lots of amazing shows taking place tomorrow night from Revolver, MLW, and GCW, which I will be at live to watch Santana Jackson moonwalk his way to victory. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff going on. As he mentioned, MLW has Slaughterhouse, GCW has Blood in the Hills too. Also, our friends at West Coast Pro are doing their 5th anniversary show, and they brought in Kenta Kobashi for this show. And it's Saturday night, and they are streaming the whole show free on YouTube. So if you're on a budget and want to watch, it looks like a really good card. Ultimo Dragons teaming with the Motor City Machine Guns. Titus Alexander is defending the West Coast Pro title. Takumi Aroha is taking on Masha Slamovich. And Kenta Kobashi will be doing whatever it is to celebrate West Coast Pro's 5th anniversary. So that's happening as well. But there's a ton of independent shows this weekend.
Interesting. Who's going to take the chops? Is he going to do any chops?
Dude, I don't know if he's going to be doing any chops.
Come on, one chop.
Maybe.
Okay.
We'll see.
By the way, so Mystico versus Rocky Romero will be on Rampage next week.
Oh, that's right. They're taping it Wednesday, and it'll air on Rampage.
On
right.
Wednesday.
Okay. So there you have it.
Thank you, man.
That is it for us. Saturday night, it's Collision Course with the world-renowned Kate from Montreal and John Cena as well coming at you on Saturday. Karen Peterson and Bruce Lord will have a review of Royal Quest 3. So those will be on the cafe. And then Sunday, MCU later with Rich Fan and WH Park, and then the NWA podcast. So look out for all of those shows this weekend. Thanks for all the great calls tonight and people submitting their feedback, and have a great weekend.